Hi everybody, this is Karak from Angry Centaur Gaming. Thanks for watching. Today I was asked to go ahead and see if I could do a clarification or maybe just, I guess, sort of a comparison between Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Rogue. So I'm just going to break into it really quick. If you're one of those type of people who thinks that, a past-gen system can't, have a good-looking game, then you should just turn off this video because you don't want to see this video and I don't want you watching it. That makes no sense. It's not in my worldview. I do believe that older systems can still have good-looking games. You just have to assume the hardware that is playing the game and understand what it is capable of doing and still understand that a game can look good. And so you'll have to come to grips with that because even though the PC version of Rogue is coming out soon, it's not out yet. So you're looking at the PS3 and 360 versions of Rogue versus the Xbox One and PS4 version and PC version of Unity. So I'm just going to jump into it basically and go down the list story. Frankly, the story of Arno in Unity is actually quite interesting, but it's not told with any uniqueness to it that makes you sit up and beg for buttermilk. You're not looking at it going, wow, man, I can't believe how cool this story is. I just want to sit here, eat my popcorn, and take my shoes off, put my feet up, and watch this. Instead, it's sort of a by-the-numbers story. It's not bad. It's just not excellent in the way it's told within the game. And, you have to understand, these games have cutscene after cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. And so you're going to be sitting there for a long time, so you want that story to be presented in a way that captures your interest. And I would say that Unity is sort of par for the course in how it delivers its content and its story-based content to you. Though the story might be interesting, you have once again the throwaway part where you're in the current time or the future, and those, I think we can all agree now that that is just filler to Ubisoft. They have no desire to actually do anything with the future storytelling. I think in the past that was a big idea to show this broad spectrum, but all they really do every single time is it's like the X-Files. Whenever they wanted to show something, they would randomly throw in one of their major major clutch episodes to sort of get viewers back in. That's sort of how Ubisoft keeps the people interested in the future storytelling, and they sort of mention it and occasionally have you go around with your little tablet in the future, checking with your iPad, whatever, looking around for Wi-Fi signals. Is completely ridiculous. Now, when you come to Rogue's storytelling, the reason why I rate Rogue's storytelling so high is because it does a couple things unique. One, it asks the question we've all been fucking wanting to ask, which is, how could people continually do this without occasionally someone saying, what the fuck are we doing, guys? And in Rogue, that happens. And it happens realistically, very realistically, when you consider what has occurred and you consider that, realistic in the terms of going back in time, looking through people's genetic memories isn't super realistic. But it goes towards showing that Rogue just has a more mature and developed storyline, a more interesting one. You've got the Boondock Saints, the two Irish brothers, Shay and his brother, I can't remember his name, but it's so funny because the moment they come on, I couldn't stop from thinking this was like an Ubisoft version of Boondock Saints. It doesn't continue that way, but at the starting, that's what I thought. Shay, just as a character, is very interesting. The people he meets are mostly interesting. There's a couple connections to some of the other Assassin's Creeds, and maybe one or two characters that aren't that interesting to me, but overall, I would say the arc of Shay versus the arc of Arno, completely one-sided. Rogue wins out. Now, when it comes to graphics, I can only state that obviously the Xbox One and PS4 versions of Unity are going to look better than Rogue. However, those run so fucking terribly that if I put both of those up on a screen and I showed multiple people which one, and actually had them play, there is a chance, especially if you get into certain places where it drops to 5 frames a second, there are places where people might just actually look at the older system and say, this one actually looks better as a whole, as a package. Now, we all know shiny graphics can surprise anybody, but I think no one is under the impression that Unity runs well. You have floativating, as I call them, people just floativating through the world, just warping in and out of levels and the ground and coming up, and your character shot off like he's out of a howitzer sometimes for no reason. I swear to God, there just should have been a boom. It's like those cannons that shoot off in the halftime of a Super Bowl game. It was just odd, the problems that Unity has, and graphically I thought it was hilarious walking up and watching people change from man to woman, man, woman, child, man, woman, child, man, 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 woman, child, it was like I said in the review, it was like presidential voting polls. It was constantly changing. I had no clue what I was supposed to expect. And it's just so filled with bugs, and the frame rate is so poor. And then you go to play Rogue, and it's at 720p, so it's obviously down a little bit on your resolution, but it runs at a steady frame rate. It does the ocean, the Arctic, the Atlantic, and the Caribbean spaces, the sunny spaces, and it mixes them all in one game. It offers you a wider view of locations and areas than Unity could even dream of. And overall, it's just a vastly more impressive game state than Unity offers. Unity offers sort of like the next step in where they want to go with the Ubisoft, but no revolution there. It is sort of an evolution, and we're adding these couple things, but really the term Unity should just be because they decided to get microtransactions, co-op, multiplayer, the story itself, riffs, and just jam it all into one game. I mean, that's really it. That's the Unity title really makes sense in a way, because they just tried to jam everything in there. While Rogue, they go very distinctly towards a specific goal, and they hit that goal in all ways. And in gameplay, you have some of the stuff from Black Flag added, and some of the stuff people didn't like trailing missions and stuff like that, they're not as prevalent. And so you get this really enjoyable game. With a ton of crafting and upgrades, and you don't get that in Unity. You don't get crafting. You get customization, which I really like in Unity. I love really outfitting my guy. It blows it when it comes to sheer numbers and what you can do. It blows Rogue away, but it's got its own issues on that side. So gameplay wise, Unity does offer co-op, which I do have to admit is actually quite fun. And it can also be done alone. So you can experience these missions if you want, because the missions on co-op were actually interesting to me, far more than the main mission. It's this odd dichotomy there, where in Rogue, the main missions, very interesting, side missions were typical Black Flag kind of stuff. So you have this switch over here on one game, and where let's say, in a way, you could say that Rogue nails it as a sequel, and Unity fails as a sequel in that way, in the way that this really just isn't that enjoyable to play through the main game. This is super enjoyable to play through the main game, not so enjoyable in the side missions, while Unity over here is enjoyable in the main missions, but not so much in the side missions. So fucking odd. Then you have rifts, which is, they're basically these dimensional shifts that happen due to the programming in the code, and they send your character to all these different time zones and timelines. They were interesting as set pieces. Gameplay, they were interesting as well. I enjoyed those. So again, you have this thing where the side stuff is interesting. I think I made a mistake and said the main stuff in Unity a second ago. I think I said the main stuff in Unity was interesting. It's that side stuff that's actually interesting, the side things they're doing. Where you go to Rogue, there really isn't a lot of side stuff that's super interesting. Like I said, you have the basic missions, and then of course you have your ship. And let's be honest, if you're a fan of Black Flag, man, Rogue's the shit for you, gentlemen. If you the easiest way to say it is, if you thought Assassin's Creed 3 was good, then maybe you should check out Unity, because it's sort of the same way. It's a completely bugged mess that's actually fun when it works. But if you thought all the other Assassin's Creeds were good, especially Black Flag, honestly, I would suggest you check out Rogue. First of all, it's going to be cheaper. Second, it's going to run no matter what on on the system. It runs really well. And it offers tried and true sequel gameplay. So I really enjoyed that. When it comes to sound, music, and voice between the two, sound we can sort of skip. They both are using the same environmental effects, the same studios for a lot of their stuff. I'm sure a lot of it's actually rehashed. It really has to do with how they go in and grab the data and how they make it hook into the game. Sound within both is excellent, but I would say Unity has a slightly higher sound threshold. It's just a little bit better. It's a little bit more clear. And walking through a city in Unity, guys, is one of the most fantastic audio displays I think I've ever experienced. This sheer just magnitude of atmosphere that you get when walking through the town, not only because of the visuals, matter of fact, there's a lot of mistakes, but with the audio, there isn't. And if you're like me, where you enjoy audio, you're seeing painters painting people who are holding themselves in positions to be painted. You can go to like, sort of like zoos where there's clowns and all, and like a circus, I guess. You can go into the different parks and the birds, and you can hear all this. It's just, it, you know how some games you play, there's ambient sound, but you can't see those creatures that make the ambient sound? You know, you see a fucking elephant, and you look around, there's a deer, and you're like, I don't think that's actually what's making that sound, but whatever. That's sort of like most games. Unity really feels concrete. It feels like you walk in, and whatever you see is there making a sound. There's an attention to detail that's insane. There's the hammering of wood on with hammer on wood, and you can hear that. You can hear this, and you can hear it echoing when you walk into tight locations and corners. That sound changes and sort of throbs around you, and then as you leave, it sort of becomes wider and stops that echoey reverb that you get, and becomes more of a clear sound as you sort of come closer to the source. Very, very good. Now, when it comes to Rogue sound effects, let's be honest, guys, I mean, it's Rogue, it's the game. You're out there on your sailing vessel, man, you got the fucking wind in your hair, and you're listening to sea chanties, and as I said in my review, I challenge anybody to not sort of hum along to some of these sea chanties. There's a very real sense of camaraderie that came with Black Flag and with this game because of those sea chanties and treating your people a little bit more like people. I mean, sure, you still see -1 crew when someone dies, but there's an overall feeling of community on that game, within that game, and they do a good job of telling a story to make you feel that way. You know, showing some of the lesser people who maybe are they're guys, a deckhand, and you decide when you capture a vessel to take it into your fleet. You know, you put your little hat on his head and slap him on the back like you're like, good job, brother. None of that happens in Unity, and so with Rogue, you get a sense of this communal sense, and that to not get off topic, that's sort of added with the sound when you're going through the ice and you're breaking ice with your icebreaker on your prow, and you're going through the ice packs. It's just incredible sound. They do such a good job with that wind. And again, like I said, the sea chanties. The battle is actually very good. It all sounds good. The ambient sound is there. I will say that the ambient sound, there were times where I'm like, whatever they're playing right now, like a bird or whatever, there's a fucking bird anywhere in this game right now. Sometimes that bothers me. I'm a little bit of a nitpicker when it comes to sound. So that bothered me a little bit. But overall, I would say they both do their specific things. The tried and true sequel continues and doesn't really stretch its wings, which is Rogue. And then Unity really does have the better sound atmosphere. Plain and simple, it just does. When it comes to music, totally different. I don't know how to really describe it other than that, they're just different styles. Rogue is a little bit more samey, I guess, compared to the other games, where Unity seems to reach out and try some unique things like classical music. That's a toss-up, man. That's like, what do you like? Do you like classical or do you like the synth? There's like synth classical for one game and classical for the other. And so you have to watch my reviews to sort of see what I think. But overall, I think both have good music, but I think I don't know, like it's hard to identify between either one of them which one's better, because there's some forgettable music. It might be better when it plays, but there's some forgettable music in Unity and in Rogue. So I think that's sort of equal. One might be better at its highs and a little bit lower during the normal time. The other one might be better overall, but not have as cool as soaring music. I explained in my review that Rogue is not as much about exploration. It's not as much about a character going out to find himself or to discover these secret mysteries. Instead, he already knows the mysteries. And, a spoiler alert, even though it's not a spoiler because we already know it's fucking called Rogue for a reason, and it's right in the commercials. He was an assassin, so he knows a lot of their secrets, and then he goes to the Templars. So it's a sense of discovery on one side, but also a sense of just dire grimness in a way. And the music has an earthy, feel to it and sound to it that I really like. So you know what? I would say out of both, I really have to say no, I can't even give a review between those two. Sorry. They're about equal if you compare them to each other and not to other games out there. And then you come to, the voice effects. I think we can all agree that Ubisoft knows how to get the right voice actors, and yes, there are some issues with Rogue. There's one that's particularly bad. It's like the voice actor, he shows up. He's one of your second commands. He's your first mate. Sorry, he shows up. He sounds like the cross between a Skylanders character and one of your old, high school teachers that taught driving ed. And you're listening to him, and you're just like, what the fuck? His inflection is off. He sounds boisterous when he's not supposed to be. He's like, I have giant shoes. And you're like, good for you. What the fuck? I mean, what are you even talking about? And that happens a lot of times. And, half the time when you're sailing your vessel and he's talking, you're just like, who the fuck are you? Like, why are you even here? You're the weirdest character. There's also another character that is within the Assassins group that's with you, a female character that just overall didn't fit. How their inflections don't fit, their overall just voice doesn't fit the character. That kind of thing popped up. And I noticed it. Overall, though, everybody else, totally fine. Now you come to Unity. Unity is a very sprawling game. It's got a massive number of main characters and characters you meet. And I would say that their voice effects I really did like. I really did like Arno. I just thought he was really, really an interesting character and a normal guy. Now, they don't do a very good job of explaining the sense of discovery a normal kid would have if he found out that there were suddenly Templars and Assassins in an age-old war battling each other for control of the fucking Earth. That doesn't happen. Instead, you've got Arno, who just within a couple minutes is like, "Sup, man? Yeah, man. I understand. Everybody's Assassins and Templars, man. I'm jumping right in there, and suddenly I know how to fight." It's like you fucking Jim Cotta, or there was some really bad montage, where he just suddenly learned all these skills. That's okay. He got in. He ends up fighting and does a good job, and you sort of move on from there. His voice actor's good. He comes across as a somewhat confident but also childish character. It just does a really good job. The secondary characters around him also fairly well. I really did like their overall bit. So I would say combined, in comparing those two, Rogue does a good job with less, and Unity does a good job with more. So in all effects, I would say Unity's probably a little bit better in their voice work, because it just has more. There are some mistakes. There's definitely some hit and misses, but it just seems to have more. It's in a place where there's more characters to even interact with. Now, there's some stuff in Rogue I'm not going to talk about right now because there's some spoilers. So there are some characters you re-meet in Rogue and you have some interactions with. I'll just say that. And so, it's hard to give out data without, giving out spoilers. So then we move on to gameplay. Gameplay, it's one of those things that's going to be hard, but basically the easiest way to describe it is, Rogue, you can play the game the way you want to play it, and you can get to the end and you can experience 0 bugs and a fine Assassin's Creed game. Unity, you can play the game you want to play, you can play it all the way to the end, and you can be fucking dwarfed by the amount of bugs and just sheer anarchy that you could possibly imagine. Imagine the absolute worst day that you could possibly have, and then combine it by 10 and give it to whoever programmed the AI, and that's probably what occurred. The AI is the most ridiculous AI I've ever experienced in a game. In 5 years, I've never seen a game this buggy or with this bad of AI. But the bugginess and the AI are sort of separate. The AI, unless the AI is just, can't figure out what gender a character is to give it a voice, I don't know. But separating the two for a second, the AI in Unity is so bad, characters stand there, they don't attack you, they're just like, "What's up, man?" And you're killing people, and they're like, "I bet you he's supposed to do that, we're cool." And then you kill another guy, and he's like, "It's a little shady, but I'm just going to stick around because..." And then he kills another guy, and he's like, "I think I should probably attack you." And then you kill the fourth guy, and he's like, "Okay, fuck it." That's how long it takes. It's crazy. Or there's times where they're leaping across stuff and into shit and doing rolls, and you're not attacking them, and you're not near them, and you're like, What is this fucker doing? I mean, he's like a just fucking Kung Fu Panda over in the corner, flipping around, and you're a good room and a half away looking at him going like, "Seriously, dude? You're going to burn yourself out, man. You're going to have to carb up because by the time I get to you, you're going to be out of breath and shit. You're going to be all tired." That happens all the time. So there's just so many mistakes in the AI. There's so many mistakes in the overall way they want the game to interact with you that it causes issues. Assassinate 5, 6, 7 people like a conga line of death. in a row at a corner, no one notices. Next time, they all notice. And you're just like, okay, the rules, the reality and the rules of the game that they've set down in Unity are not paid attention to by the game itself. And that is where bugs come in. That's how people notice bugs easier. We've all played games where somebody has said, I had this bug, and you're like, well, I didn't notice that. That's because you didn't notice the break in the reality of the game that the game set forth for you from the very starting. That's typical. That's the way it happens. Or you weren't in the same level as them, let's be honest. But we're talking about you did the same thing as somebody else. You didn't notice the issue. That's because the reality did not break like it broke for somebody else. In Assassin's Creed, it's where you can go entire swaths of gameplay time where no rules are broken, and then every rule is broken, and you have hovertude, and you're just like, what the fuck are these people doing? You have cobblers giving blowjobs on street corners. It's just anarchy, man. It's complete anarchy. It's got so many bugs, and they are like, well, we've got 10,000 people in a crowd. Yes. If you take 5,000 people and you switch their gender instantly, technically that's 10,000. That's the way the game is going. They could have 15,000 because they switch it from man to woman back to man. Technically, is that 15,000 people in their crowd? And it's so broken. There's so many problems. People wearing hats, no hats, pants, no pants. Dress, different color dress, same color dress. Now it's a man. Now it's a man wearing a dress, and you're just like, this game has so many problems. So when it comes to gameplay, after the bugs, you're left with a game that doesn't really do much. It doesn't change the movements, right? It doesn't allow you to do any super cool new stuff. You do have killing moves, which I really liked, and you have some new weapons, which I really liked. But overall, the stretch isn't there, if you get my drift. There's just not a stretch. They're not stretching their wings. Ignoring microtransactions for a second, which are there purely to piss people off, because they could have been removed from the game and no one would have noticed, other than they might have said a couple places there was a little slowdown to leveling up. I don't even think I would have noticed. However, you have to get through those bugs to experience the world, and that's when you're taking this, you're trying to see how much does this game stretch its gameplay. What does it do different, or what does it do the same that it's perfected? And it does do some cool stuff. Co-op, man, guys, come on, man. That's fucking insane. It's fun to play with somebody else. That's cool. You see Joe Blow standing there next to you. High five. I'm the purple assassin. You're the red one. Let's kick some ass. There's nothing wrong with that, Mismatched color assassins. Story at 3. That shit's great. However, at the same time, it is a little bit janky, and they can't just run around with you. So, there's issues like that. The riffs are there as purely one more thing to add to a game to make it seem like they've really added content, when in real life it's fluffer. The reason why I say that is because though I liked them and I liked exploring those areas, there was no actual true gameplay change-ups in those areas that I think they could have done. They could have really went crazy in that area. Now, when you jump over to Rogue, let's cover bugs first. There aren't any. Okay, great. Let's say there's the typical Assassin's Creed bug where occasionally I have a pathing issue, but overall the game is solid as hell. And then you come to the gameplay. What does it do to stretch itself? Well, nothing. It really doesn't do anything to stretch itself. It is a true sequel in that it takes what has come before it and it tries to refine it, and it takes what has come before it in any terms of negatives, and it tries to define those negatives, and it tries to repair them. And Rogue does a spectacular job at that. Rogue is the perfect bump of gameplay for me. Now, people ask me how long it took me. Fuck you, man. I have no clue. Like, it took me over 20 hours, but the way I play, I'm reviewing and testing. Now I can sort of figure out how much a normal person would play if they just did the main story or if they did 100% completion. But the reason why I say fuck you is because the game, it's over 12 hours, okay? We'll just say that. It's over 12 hours, but that's not super important. What's important is, it is important, but what's important is, does it truly, is it enjoyable? Is it fun? And that's the last thing, the most important thing, the fun factor. Is the game fun? And between the two, Unity was very fun, but it had issues. Rogue was fun, but it had no issues. And maybe the heights of fun didn't occur in Rogue that occurred in Unity, but Unity left such a sour taste in my mouth at times that Rogue just beats it out. Rogue, it doesn't stretch its wings. It takes everything that it has and it cups its wings around the little nestled eggs of all these awesome ideas, and it percolates them, it warms them up, it cooks them, hatches them for you, and you go off and you play your game. That's a perfect sequel for me. That's the sequel that we should be seeing. We should not see Unity being the next gen, we should see Rogue today being on all the systems. That's the way it should be, plain and simple. Rogue overall, like I said, may not have the heights of fun that Unity has, because Unity has this new shit, and some of the shit's awesome. Gaff hook, kill. You know, if you saw my review, there's the different weapons do some crazy shit, and the customization's crazy. But Rogue, you're following a story that we've all wanted. I'm sure we've all said, you know, like, motherfucker, what are we doing? And Rogue follows that to its bitter end, and connects a little bit with Unity in that way. And I just feel that gameplay wise, Rogue may not offer as much, but it offers better, if that makes sense. It offers better. It is just overall a better game at this time. Now, can they patch Unity? Sure, fuck it, whatever. But you know what? The plain and simple fact is, whenever anybody asks me if they can patch a game to fix the problems, I feel a little bit of despair in my heart, because I feel bad for the dev most of the time, despite what they've done. Because if somebody's shown interest, but they're going to wait for a sale, or wait for a bug fix, or wait for something, that means there's just less of that initial bump of excitement and interest. And nothing will ever get it back. You can't get that back. Unity's been hit pretty hard. Will they see a loss in sales? We'll never know. But we know that even one person canceled their sales. You see it on a forum. That's one that was going to buy it and isn't now. And I feel bad in a way about that, because, you know, Unity will probably be patched, but some of the stuff can't be patched out. You know, you can't mix in the co-op. I mean, you could, but it would take an extraordinary amount of manpower to mix those in. While Assassin's Creed Rogue needs no patch. It's perfect. It's excellent. What it does, it's sort of like what you see is what you get, like the word pop. It's there. It sounds right. You turn it on and it does exactly what you expect. And it does it well. Nothing wrong with that. It's not the new hotness. It's the sort of new hotness. It's the somewhat temporary hotness. It's the I'm sort of just here with everybody else, sort of hot. I'm a 7 on a 1 to 10. Well, this one's a 10 over here, but she's got a bunch of mental fucking problems. This one's a 7, sort of waiting in the back, just seeing if somebody will notice her. And you do, and she's the one you end up wanting to be with. That's really these games in a nutshell. I enjoyed both of them. Not gonna lie, I had a great time with Unity at times. At times, I literally wanted to drop kick the fucking Xbox One and PS4 through a window. But with Rogue, I had a really good time, and played it in longer swaths of time than I did Unity by far. So that's something that should also be pointed out. But overall, I would say they're both enjoyable games, with Rogue being far better, far more mature at this time than Unity. Unity being a wait for a sale, and Rogue being worth a purchase, even if you don't want to go back to the eye-glaring 720p that we used to say looked awesome. It's hilarious where somebody will say 720p, it's so ugly. You can see those same people saying, this is awesome, when they saw the games, years ago. You just have to, it takes a little bit of maturity to sort of go, okay, you know what? We're taking a little step back here, but I don't need a sense of maturity really to take a step back when I turn on my tablet game and expect it to not look as good as my 360 game, or my 3DS from Nintendo, or whatever system I have. It just takes a moment to remember what system you're playing, and the fact is that Rogue looks really good. And so, of those two, Rogue. That's it. Sorry, I wanted to clear that up because I felt like I was going on too long. So if you liked the video, hit like. If you disliked it, hit dislike. And peace out.